All right, the last mile. It's where systems complete the job or fall short. It's a concept from infrastructure and telecom, that final leg that brings power, bandwidth, and service to your door. Often the hardest part, always the most important. In government, it's where policy meets pavement, where a budget line becomes a bus route or doesn't, where the promise of more housing becomes permits and bricks or gets lost in delay. It's where people feel government, not in bill signings and press conferences, but in whether things show up on their door. Here's the shift I want to offer today. If we've traditionally thought of the last mile as the place where systems complete the job, in today's fractured world, it's also the only place where new solutions can take root, gain legitimacy, and rebuild trust. It's where we have to begin because nothing else seems to hold. So we've been talking about the importance of cities for decades now, since Ben Barber's If Mayors Ruled the World, since Richard Florida's Creative Class, since downtowns filled up and city halls got bold. They've been framed as engines of economic innovation, hubs of cultural leadership, frontrunners in climate action. All true. But it's time to look again and get closer. Because when we examine the specific maladies of this moment, it is cities and the municipal governments that power them become all the more vital than ever. Across high-income democracies, confidence in our economic systems is waning, especially among young people. Even when the economy is technically growing, people don't feel it. Good jobs are harder to find, housing feels out of reach, the promise of upward mobility faltered. This is not just a US story. From Lisbon to Leipzig, Milan to Manchester, a generation of young people are coming of age believing the system isn't going to deliver for them. And when people lose faith in our economic systems, they lose faith in our institutions. Governments that ask citizens to wait their turn, to trust the process, are no longer seen as fair and democratic, but as distant, ineffective, even oppressive. Compromise starts to look like delay, debate like denial. The spiral continues. It becomes harder to do big things together, harder to see problems like migration, housing, safety as solvable, or even to agree on their basic terms. What emerges isn't just frustration, it's fragmentation that puts collective problem solving out of reach. National governments have not reversed these trends. In an era defined by complexity, uncertainty, and rapid change, centralized institutions are just too slow. But cities, operating closest to people's real lives, have become essential sites for experimentation, agile problem solving, and public imagination. No longer content to act as mere implementers of national policy, they are bringing new skills and powerful ways of working to program and policy design. They're building a different paradigm, one of co-production, where government doesn't just act for people but with them, where solutions emerge from lived experience, not just expert analysis. And that's setting them up to be the repair shops for our economic systems, the innovation labs for our social cohesion and lived democracy. Of course, city governments are in vastly different places when it comes to having the muscle they need to meet the moment. And that's what our team at Bloomberg Philanthropies has spent more than a decade working on, building a global infrastructure to boost local state capacity. We start with leaders. We're building mayoral training programs in regions around the world. They equip leaders with the skills they need to create a culture of innovation inside bureaucracy, unlock the potential of teams, and deliver results that people can see and feel. Our Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative, for instance, has trained over 300 mayors covering 8 in 10 of America's largest cities. But we go well beyond mayors, training budget officers, procurement chiefs, human resource leads, IT and data officials. Why? Because changing outcomes requires changing the municipal operating system, and that means differently skilling the people who run it every day. Second, we help city halls operate like 21st century organizations, fair, fast, agile. We supercharge data practices and are working to ensure cities don't just get dragged into the AI era, but are positioned to lead it. We embed innovation teams and skills. This isn't about flashy pilots and labs operating on the margins. It's about institutionalizing people-centered policymaking and reorienting city hall teams as platforms that crowd in energy and ideas and talent from outside. These are city halls that ask, what if and why not? I'm proud to note that our innovation team program will expand to 19 more cities across Europe this year. Third, we help seed and spread impactful urban innovations. Mike Bloomberg has long believed that philanthropy should give public organizations the funding to try really bold and often risky things, and then help the best ideas scale. That's why we invest in early breakthrough ideas to see what's possible. And once something shows promise, we work just as hard to have it travel, so others don't have to recreate the wheel. These supports help cities find the right ideas at the right time, adapt them to local context, and act with the benefit of others' hard-earned insights, shortening the distance between inspiration and replication. Finally, we anchor all this in a global learning community. We take city innovators and mayors on a journey, one that accelerates progress through connection. Mayors from our African Leadership Program might join the Youth Climate Action Fund, where they master the art of open innovation. They then go to Mexico City to City Lab and exchange ideas with their peers. Data-driven leaders from Buenos Aires or Lisbon learn alongside peers from Baltimore or Lagos. What unites them isn't just being part of the Bloomberg Philanthropies community, it's a shared commitment to governing differently and creating a next-generation public sector. This is where innovation meets the street, where theory becomes practice and cities move much faster by moving together. And we're driving for scale. In 2012, we made our first 5 city grants. Today, we work in 975 city halls. This capacity-building infrastructure is global and growing. Economists remind us that capitalism moves in long cycles, periods of innovation and growth, followed by disruption, and then reinvention. Think of the post-war golden age, which gave way to stagnation, then yielded to the neoliberal era launched by Thatcher and Reagan. Each phase came with its own institutional arrangements, different compacts between governments and citizens, different deals between business and workers. We're clearly entering a new transition now. The old order is cracking. So what comes next? Cities have rarely been seen as economic actors, agents in their own right, capable of shaping urban markets or the way capitalism is experienced on the ground. But that is changing. Today, I'd argue cities are not only positioned to offer the next blueprint, they may be the only ones of placing first steps into the future we want. Let me show you what I mean. In Mexico City, Mayor Clara Brugada is reimagining civic infrastructure at unprecedented scale. Through her utopias, pools, pianos, meditation classes, offered not as luxuries but as guarantees, challenging what poor residents are told they deserve and redefining what they can expect from their government. It's a new kind of social contract, one that reshapes the everyday experience of the poorest residents in one of the world's greatest cities. In San Antonio, Texas, Mayor Ron Nirenberg is re-engineering the local economy, stacking workforce training, public transit investments, affordable housing into a single platform for upward mobility. His strategy is both about building skills and removing barriers to labor market participation. And it's not imposed from on high. 77% of residents voted for it through referenda. In the absence of national or state intervention, the municipality and its residents have stepped in. In Vienna, as this crowd surely knows, housing policy has been decades ahead and still sets the pace. Nearly 2/3 of residents live in publicly built or subsidized housing, keeping housing affordable and out of speculative markets. As global cities struggle with shortages, Vienna offers both critique and blueprint, a model of housing as a public good. But even more, it's creating the conditions for a more inclusive urban capitalism by alleviating housing stressors for workers and instability for businesses. If cities are acting as the repair shops for capitalism, they're also pioneering new forms of democratic resilience, strengthening trust from the ground up. In Kyiv, amid war, a transit app became a wartime operating system. It connected residents to shelter, alerts, and safe passage, demonstrating last-mile governance in its most urgent form. But it also served as a democratic innovation, keeping local government present, trustworthy, and functional as the rest of normalcy slipped away. Even in chaos, it's raised expectations for what government can and should deliver, now pioneering digital mental health supports, proving that resilience isn't just logistical, it's civic. In Istanbul, Mayor Imamoglu used civic tech to build a culture of solidarity. His Pay It Forward platform let neighbors anonymously pay one another's utility bills, creating a trust-based safety net. Adapted for earthquake relief and taken up in cities across Turkey, it shows how municipal ideas can drive broader resilience. As he told me 6 months before he was arrested, cities are where we will defend and reinforce democracy. This work is democratic innovation in action, expanding participation and trust, and reminding us that solidarity can be designed from the bottom up. These examples don't just show what's possible. They show what becomes possible when municipalities have the capacity to act. Across all of these examples, we see ambitious leaders, always backed by well-capacitated teams and strong civic partnerships that come together to produce real shifts in how people engage in society and in their economy. These innovations are softening capitalism's harshest edges. They are expanding who belongs. They are reinforcing democratic principles every day. But again, this doesn't just take mayoral vision. It takes building up 21st century capabilities within city halls, something we must invest in, not just hope for. Because the future will not be decided in distant capitals alone. It will be assembled block by block, budget by budget, by municipal governments with the imagination and the capacity to lead. The last mile is surely more than a delivery challenge. It's where solutions earn legitimacy, where government is personal, where renewed belief can emerge. And if we get it right, if we equip those closest to the ground to act boldly and imaginatively, the last mile will not be the end of the line. It will be the first step toward a future we can fight for. Thank you very much.